Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. I'm speaking again with my dear friend Jackie Lora Jones. And as always, we like to talk about A Course in Miracles. So here we
Yay.
are again today, doing just that. And we thought it'd be fun to talk about the undo practice of the Course. And one of the things that I was just telling Jackie about is in various online groups about the course I attend. I had occasion to just throw undo into the search function in the web edition of the course, which is acim.org/ACIM. If anybody wants to try it out and see for themselves, you can hit the search button and type in UNDO, and you get 105 results. I was thinking there'd be just a small handful, but there's a lot of undoing going on in the courses. Pure non-dual metaphysics, isn't there? Yeah. So anyway, welcome, Jackie. Always fun to talk with you, and I'm looking forward to our session on undoing.
Yes. Hey, thanks so much, Bruce. It's always a great topic. And that was so funny when you shot that over to me via email, 105 mentions or whatever. It's fun to know that, and you can look them up and undoing. That's what it's all about. It occurs to me that I think that's why A Course in Miracles is so unique, because it's focusing on undoing the negative, undoing all the blocks we've put between
Mhm.
God and this illusory self that we
Mhm.
believe we are, this double shield of oblivion. um, but yeah, so it's so unique in that way, because I feel like it's so healing to do that. It's almost like you're forced, not in a bad way, but to practice the course, you're forced to really look at your grievances and look at why you're upset and everything
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's great. So I always enjoy talking about undoing, and I enjoy talking with you. I think the last time we did had a discussion, it was September, we were
Mhm.
saying. So this is fun. We are in the holidays, and I'm all about keeping the holy in the holly this season. So staying in the Holy Spirit mind as
There
much
you
as I can.
there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. And anyway, the idea of undoing, I think, is so helpful because um, from the course's perspective, really, there's nothing that we need to do. In fact, it even says very specifically, "I need do nothing." And I always
Right.
try to remind myself to break apart that four-word sentence, very short sentence, and it's like the I being the little silly, seemingly separate self that I think I am doesn't need to do anything, because if I do things from that motivation, I'm basically just reinforcing the idea that there's a self that needs to be doing something, and then the need kicks in. It's like, well, why would there be a need in an identity that doesn't have needs? And that the course, I think, approaches that indirectly in a lot of ways. It basically has us look at all the different needs that we think we have. In fact, in the Song of Prayer is to the phrase that I try to remember that sort of like summarizes the whole thing for me is the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. Um, and of course, we think we need to do a lot of things too, as well as have a lot of things. And
Right.
and yet the course is, you know, I think so typical of a lot of Eastern mystical traditions. It's really more about being than having or doing, isn't it?
Yes. Oh gosh, you always well said, and you always bring up things that I'm thinking of in my mind. The I need do nothing is so interesting. I love that too. And I get a lot of always, I've been a therapist for 16 years, so my examples are always someone asks me or da 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 da, but about I need do nothing, being confusing. And you explain that really well. When there's an I, right? It's really saying I need do nothing with the ego as my
Hmm.
guide, as
Hmm.
my right. We're going to
Yep.
do things as bodies as long as we're seemingly having this external experience. We're going to do things, but the I in there, is doing it with the ego and need. Obviously, metaphysically, there's nothing to do in a projection. However, we
Hmm.
will be doing things. So I stay kind of active to the Holy Spirit, passive to the ego. And then the doing is really coming from your awareness as a kind of a state of being. And then everything is just kind of done through you. It's very different than being done by you and feeling like you have to. So it's not that we're not like doing things here, but who's doing the doing, right?
And if we're
And
doing it from the bayou, it sounds kind of swampy, doesn't it?
yeah, that's right. The ego is yeah, murky, mucky, must do's. Yeah.
Wrestling those alligators in the ego mind, right? In the
That's
bayou.
right. Right. That's right. So it's just interesting. I need to know that. And I just love, like, from the Song of Prayer, like you mentioned, forget the things you need. Need is such uh, a good word for that, because it's almost like needing, you have so much investment in it. So we need things
Mhm,
here to live, but we don't have to give it the meaning the ego would give it,
mhm,
or the
mhm,
meaning the world would give it. It's almost like, yep, we'll need to drink some water, we'll need to make some money, we'll need to do this, right? But we can do all those things without our salvation being in it, which leads me to salvation is undoing in the
mhm,
course,
mhm.
undoing this thought that we're separate from God, and undoing this thought that we could be anything less than perfect spirit. So it's a template. I kind of like to say we keep the template in our mind while we're going through navigating our life here in the dream. It's just
Mhm.
about changing your internal teacher, and your process is your own and it will unfold. The curriculum's highly individualized, so just let your forgiveness process be yours. And slowly, it's always kind of just your choice to choose the Holy Spirit or Jesus more and more, because eventually you're like, the ego's methods don't work. I don't feel good when I'm trying so hard to do things, or feel like there's comparisons, or doing something right, or telling people how it should be. I mean, it's almost silly. It just gets, that takes a lot of energy
It's
instead of
exhausting,
just
isn't it? Yeah,
letting
yeah,
loves extend through you. It's exhausting, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the course doesn't, like you were saying, really advises. Well, the course really asks us to look for when we want to get into level confusion, which would be basically trying to make it about the form rather than the contents of the mind. And so it doesn't mean that we stop doing anything. We don't need to go off and live in a cave or a monastery or any other sort of ascetic thing. Or, conversely, doesn't say anything about one way or the other about behavior in any way. In fact, the two polarities that Ken Wapnick points out in his very scholarly book, Love Does Not Condemn. He talks
Mm,
about, that there's two ways you can make the world real, two extremes, but anything really that touches on that is asceticism is basically saying, oh, I don't want anything to do with the world. And I'm just going to, have this monkish life or whatever. And the Course doesn't say that at all. Nor does it say, anything about the other extreme, which is the world is all there is. Let's just go off
right.
on a wild conquest of everything and everyone kind of thing. And, you know, and it's like, no, that's really kind of missing the point too. I mean, the whole idea is if the world is in our mind, then the only thing that we really need to address in order to have consistent peace is to change our thoughts about the world, not to change the world. Yeah. Or change what
Yes.
we do in the world. So it's really undoing in the sense that I just need to stop thinking that I need to modify the dream that I'm projecting out onto the
Hmm.
the hologram of space-time, right?
Yeah. Well said. The only reason to need to do anything is resistance to
Yeah.
just what is. And it's a real hard one for people. We could do a whole week's workshop on doing things in the world, because as we said, you're going to do it. You're watching a projection. You've already done it. It's
Mm-hmm.
already over.
Mm-hmm.
What's your experience going to be of it? And the script is out there where we all awaken from the dream, or people could say where it's you, there's just one of us, but
Yeah.
but where you awaken from the dream. And just the way to get there, I think, is always to be light, whatever path you choose. If you feel you're more forgiving, loving, looking at your stuff, not projecting conflict onto others, bringing back,
Mhm.
recalling kind of the projection, having the awareness,
Mhm.
boy, you're on the right track. I
Yeah.
mean, it can be tough stuff sometimes. I like the Buddha's, what you were saying earlier, Bruce, reminded me kind of you're talking about the extremes, and Buddhism has a lot of great things like the middle road, kind of the path of the middle road,
Mhm.
where you're just not extreme, I guess is,
Right, right,
what I'm
right. Yeah.
saying, and just kind of staying light about things when you can, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm. As you're saying that, I was thinking, of course, the ego can co-opt anything. So it could
Of
basically
course,
turn that into a making the world real by exemplifying the radical middle, right?
of course,
The
anything can be
extreme
hijacked.
moderation, right?
Yes, anything can be hijacked. We know
Right,
that,
right. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
anything can be hijacked, and it is. It's
yeah.
always hijacked, but for the ego. So that's one of the good things why being in your higher self and everything, the more and more you can just discern what's this, what's that. If you feel like a point, you want to share a point or something like that, it's never with the energy of making someone wrong or something. It's so possible to have healthy discussions and debates, but when you're coming from the right-minded teacher, there won't be any attack behind it. There
Hmm.
won't be any thoughts of separation. It would just be like, okay, you like cheddar cheese, I like blue cheese, you like this, I like that, people like this. No, I live more like that. That's interesting. I live more like this. I grew up kind of like that, so that's in my mind. Oh, that's so funny because I grew up like this, and so this is in my mind. Just like an example of you can have just normal exchanges, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
have, the differences here, but they're not real differences. But we'd hardly be able to have a conversation if we weren't, as Ken always says so brilliantly, just be normal,
Hmm.
meaning
Hmm.
we're doing everything anybody else is doing. People on a spiritual path are doing what everyone else is doing. The course is helping us change our inner teacher. That's all we need to know. And then everything else will just unfold
Yeah,
from there,
yeah.
you know?
And what you just said kind of remind me of another favorite, practice is, the course doesn't ask us to not have crazy thoughts. It just asks if we would consider not keeping them, none that you would keep
Mm,
is the phrase, I believe. That
love
is, I
that.
think is really helpful. It's like, if I can just remember, it's like, I'm going to see differences. I'm going to have preferences. I'm going to, do all that stuff that's all dualistic dream figures do. But if I can just kind of watch and kind of
Mm,
be happily wrong in the sense of not wrong in like, blame, shame, guilt kind of way, but just wrong in terms of I've limited my perception by identifying with a finite thought system. And so incomplete is, I think, another helpful phrase too, is if I'm identified with this Bruce figure instead of what Holy Spirit, like you were saying, can work through me, I'm going to miss 99.99 and a whole lot of nines after that percent of what's really going on, right? So for all
right.
intents and purposes, we're all basically clueless. There's that section in section 10 in the manual for teachers where it says, in order to judge anything rightly, we'd have to be aware of an inconceivably wide range of things, past, present, and to come, and to know that, the consequences of everything and everyone on every decision we'd ever make. And who, except in their wildest fantasies, is in a position to do that? Well, so essentially, it's basically saying we're all basically clueless.
Right, right.
Even without just a first approximation, of just our immediate environment. Then if you factor in what we think we know about the material universe and the tiny little speck that we inhabit on it, how could we possibly have an idea of what's going on? So the idea of I need to do something about this little speck. I mean, it
Right,
doesn't mean we stop doing the normal things, right? Like we've been talking about.
right,
It's
right.
not. just, be normal, do what we think we need to, but just watch our minds. It's that
Yeah,
lucidity, isn't it? And the gentle,
yeah.
patient lucidity of just saying, I can keep watching my mind a little bit more every day and wake up with the idea of this is one of the things that in one of Ken's audios that I listened to the other day that I thought was really, really good. He says, how many course students wake up every morning and say, wow, I get to see where my mind needs to work on accepting the atonement and looking at my resistance. Woohoo, this is going to be an interesting day, But
Absolutely.
typically, and he says most of us, most of the time, wake up. It's like, oh, let's see, I need to, slog to the bathroom, and listen, I got this to do today and that to do,
Ah,
and yada yada.
right.
And then the surreality that has the potential of connecting us with Holy Spirit's guidance
Mhm.
is usually kind of like quickly hurtled off to the side, kind of thing, as we
Right.
let the personal uh, overrun the
Oh,
transpersonal. Yeah.
yes, they go into the forefront. We don't
Yeah.
have to feel guilty about that. Just
Yeah.
whenever we remember,
Yep. Yep.
we
Yep.
can, it occurs to me, it's so interesting. We were talking about cats before we went live. You have two cats. I used to have two cats, and they both passed, but one I had for 19 years. But I had an interesting opportunity. Um, that I'll share. My sister and I went to a funeral, which were calling a celebration of life of one of our really good friends who had passed. And we were up in the Sacramento Roseville
Mm-hmm.
area of
Mm-hmm.
California. And
Know it well.
as you know it well, I know, I
Mm-hmm.
thought of you. It was so interesting. And when we drove home, whenever we drive up there, my mother used to live up in Berkeley, as you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we used to stop at Harris Ranch, which is midway from
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles to, yeah. So we stopped there and we love it because it's very cozy. They have a great restaurant there. It's a whole hotel and everything, and a great general store with just cute everything. And it was all decorated for Christmas. So we stopped there on the way up, and then we stopped there on the way back. And I got some cute just Christmas glasses and an ornament. And um, as we pulled up, Bruce, we're pulling into Harris Ranch. And we get out of the car, and just before you go in the door, they just have an old kind of wagon on display behind the fence, behind this little wood fence. And there's a little teeny kitten mewing and just looking up. And my sister and I were like, oh my gosh. And I was like, and Mark and I had been talking about getting another kitten. So here this like kitten shows up, and I've been really befriending the last 4 months this cat down the street on our block. He's loved and cared for and indoors, but they let him out and everything. So when I do my walks, I'm like, oh, I wonder if Teddy's out today. So my point is, kitties have been coming into my experience because it's going to be closer up to a time where we get another kitten. So we're at Harris Ranch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why is this kitten just alone, and everything? So my sister and I, knowing what we know, we're just kind of like, well, let's just see what happens. I'm going to shorten the story for this purpose, but so we go in, we go to the store. I was mentioning, I wonder if the guy has some milk that we could just, give the kitten or something like that. Well, a woman at the store was way ahead of me. She was walking out with a little top of a to-go container filled with milk, and she took it out there. And the worker said, oh, there's a lot of cats around the ranch. Of course, they're out back. We do take care of them. We feed them and everything. And I said, oh, okay, well, there's one kitten that's way out here in the front. So my sister and I go, we order at the restaurant we do. I'm like, I want to check on the kitty. And I'm like, I wonder, is it a sign? I'm like, I will take that kitten home and rescue it if it's meant to be. And the reason I'm sharing this story is like Jackie, you're like, oh, you're gonna like save a kitten and you want a kitten. But these days I always step back and I say, but what is the highest good for all concerned? Give the Holy Spirit, you were saying earlier, knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do I go in and take a kitten out of its environment just because I think that the cat needs to be rescued? Now,
Mm-hmm.
not that cats don't need to be rescued, but for the point of the story, I just left it open and I kind of kept checking on the kitten and something scared it. So it went up in the little tree and then it came down. I go, oh, it's in the little tree. And I have a cute picture of it sitting on this ledge. But the whole time, my sister and I were just thinking, so we just held hands, my sister and I, at the dinner table before the food came. We said, well, I'll take the kitten home if that's just what's meant to be, with no interference from my opinion about it. It was so freeing. So when we went out, after we had eaten, we paid, we went out. I just got a box from the kitchen because I had a blanket in the car. And I thought, I'm going to set this down. We're going to put the blanket in it. If the kitten comes in it, that's fine. So as it turns out, the kitten was so scared, and everything. And I just clicked in, oh, I'm getting a chill. I just clicked into the awareness of how do I know what's best? I'm willing to be present and take the kitten or whatever for some reason. And I'm just saying in that scenario, I'm not saying that no one would ever take a kitten. I'm just saying you get the guidance that you get at the time. And it was so interesting. And we said, no, I got a download of, yeah, don't have to take the kitten out of its environment right now, And so we got in the car, started driving home, and the old me, meaning, years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, did I leave a kitten? Is something going to happen to the kitten? And those are all normal things to think. But for the purposes of clarifying kind of what we're talking about, I felt completely certain because I gave it over. I did not have to decide. And I just trusted that whatever would happen, I would have peace with it. When you're in that mind, there's no trying to force things. And so I was driving home. My sister Cindy turned to me and she goes, well, how do you feel about it? We could have driven home with a kitten. I said, you know what? Shockingly, it wasn't meant to be. She said, nope. And then we just put on the Christmas tunes and kept driving. But it's so uncomplicated when you're not in the ego mind, and you can kind of just navigate your life. The preferences for everyone watching, at some point, I want a kitten. She was so cute. We're saying she, I'm not really sure, but that just wasn't the right time. And with no investment, meaning, we don't know, I don't know all the facts in the situation, and so it just was really a good thing for me, because we all have our lessons, to really be at the point to just trust, and the outcome, it's just a fact. Getting the kitten, not getting the kitten, it's not a good or bad, this or that. It's just what it is. And then if it was a script I was watching where I came home with a kitten and it was easy, we would come home with a kitten. If it's not, then it's not. And you go on with your life, and nothing has changed around my house. We just, anyway. So I don't know. I felt kind of compelled to share that, just because being in the Holy Spirit mind, it just lessens the need for having to decide, well, what's complicated? Do I do the right thing? Oh, am I saving the kitty? How am I making this so real, as if, right? As if I can't trust that part of myself. And the reason why I can trust it and have that is the undoing of all the guilt and fear over all these years that would have kept me in a position where I just would have wrangled with this. Now, this seems like a very innocent, simple example, but this happens with what Mark's diagnosis years ago when he was sick. It can happen with things that we deem are serious, or things that we deem are not that serious. But the illusion is an illusion is an illusion, and it can all be treated in the same way, meaning you're always following the right teacher and the guidance will come. But I like to share just what's going on right now, some of the personal experiences where you just have the recognition that all this undoing of guilt, you better believe I would have felt guilty leaving a little kitten out there thinking that I had to save it. We live in Los Angeles, and pets are rescued all the time, and I love it. It's meant to be that way. Not in this case, though, but it's because I just trusted the higher guidance, you know?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and that's such a great example because it really is, the sort of thing that on the level of form, there's a whole lot of different kinds of scenarios that we come across every single day that
Every
involve,
day.
decisions of one sort or another. But the, the simplicity of the metaphysics of the course is that all those things on a horizontal level, that the countless decisions of do this, not do that, all the doing, if you will, which is including the not doing, is really part of that horizontal plane of making the dream real, right? And so the undoing is really looking at the dream from the perspective of that. I think of it as sort of like the Cheshire Cat in my mind, that's looking, above the battleground, down at
Yes.
all the decisions that seem to be so important in each moment, and realize that what's really important is I just have to choose the right teacher, and it's that decision making faculty in the mind that's constantly choosing between the thought system of guilt and the thought system of forgiveness. That's just the only important decision we will ever make at any given instant. And it becomes a holy instant when we choose the Holy Spirit, when we choose the
That's
idea
right.
that the separation didn't happen, or at least even just being willing to question
Mm-hmm.
the things that ego basically shouts constantly and metaphorically that we pay attention to, and says, that what's happening in the world is a big deal. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
big dealness, I think, is another big clue, is when we
Yes.
feel anxious about outcomes
Mm-hmm.
and attached
Mm-hmm.
to expectations and all
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
you bring up a great point. It's very hard for someone, like, they'll, if they tune into a video like this or something and they don't know about the course, it always is, obviously there are things going on in the world that we don't want, the
Hmm.
war and the conflict. The course is just teaching us where the world is coming from. It's a projection from our mind. So when we're choosing the thought of conflict, the ego, you know, projection makes the perception. So when we project that out, of course we're going to see conflict all over the place, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so I find it so interesting to be able to understand that that's going on, but at the mind level,
Hmm.
healing the thought that gave rise to what we call the world.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it is a hard thing to recognize that the world is a projection coming from you,
Right.
from your mind. But like you said so perfectly, Bruce, we don't even have to go back to the metaphysics if it's so uncomfortable. We can just say, gosh, maybe I could just see this differently. Just,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
just want to feel better. How can I just grab a different perspective or something like that? Just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the Holy Spirit works with you, or
Hmm.
whoever it is for you, your
Right.
angels. It's your higher self taking form in whatever form, um, gives you an opposite image of what you believe you are, your
Hmm.
sinful self. We have an angel, we have Jesus, we have, so
Yep.
whatever works for people, they should use, because
Hmm.
that's what's going to help you in your own way, awaken in your own time, or just feel better first. Ken does a long thing about, often he always says, I'm always paraphrasing Ken, can't really say it like it, but the personal self we believe we are is often transformed first. So we don't want to skip steps on the ladder and just feel like we have to just go from A to Z all the time. And we
Right.
can just be on these bottom rungs and just say, you know what, I'm just looking to feel better.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like to turn on this TV and see war. Who likes that? No one does. It's a different awareness to have, eventually, gradually realizing where that's coming from or
Hmm.
whatever. But
Hmm.
even if people don't realize where that's coming from, you can take the step of saying, gosh, how can I see that? I want to reach for a higher thought. How can I see that better? Maybe that would involve something that would help them contribute in a way that they thought it would be a good way to contribute. Or people would be very surprised at the awakening and the epiphanies that can come when you want to see something differently. You can have a different perspective and a different interpretation of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I always say to new time students, because I have clients all over the map for every different spirituality they follow, a lot of course students. I have a ton of course students, but a lot of people that are following a different path.
Mm-hmm.
And they always recognize the thought of two parts to the mind, like an understanding, God, I'm in this part, in this way, but I feel better when I look at the angel on my dresser and I recognize there's good. And see, so these are just all reflections, and we just people, the Holy Spirit will meet people where they are and just
Mm-hmm.
help you lift out of this dream, right?
Yep. Yep. When you mentioned two thought systems, I was thinking I'm going to change my background here. And can you see that
Oh,
okay?
yes, I'm gonna look down here. Oh, look at this.
So yeah, this is the undo curriculum is always about forgiveness, isn't it? And so on the light half of the chart, if you will, we the Holy Spirit is basically taking what on the other side, the insane thought system of the ego is always trying to make it about the form and keeping us in prison, which I've got a little fractured earth there with a couple
I
of
love, yeah.
couple of stick figures duking it out. but but that's where we spend most of our time when we listen to the ego, because we're basically say I have to do this in order to make the world right. The world isn't meeting my needs, and so I have to keep doing all these things or undoing,
Mhm.
but not in the sense the Holy Spirit would use that undoing. But it's always some kind of fix. There's always something wrong, and it's wrong in the ego sense is always sin happened. The sin, guilt, fear thought system is really at the foundation of the thoughts that keep pushing us into that lower quadrant there that is labeled prison. But that's the world.
Yes,
That's our material universe that we
universe.
think we're bodies in that world, and and bodies are always competing and fighting and opposing and conflicting, and that's just the nature of what we made up, so that we would constantly have an seemingly endless stream of scapegoats and things to do stuff about.
Hmm.
And so we're always busy doing all that stuff. Um, and the Holy Spirit just says, well, what if you just kind of sashay over this way to the classroom,
Yes, come
and
over
I've
here.
got a little cartoony thing with kids dancing around, holding hands, kind of thing. But it's
Yeah,
like,
I
well,
love
if we're
it.
all the same, if we're all equal, then we don't have to fight over things, because the shared interest kicks in, and we realize we're all struggling with the same dream, and so that instead of the arrow on that side of the chart pointing down and trying to make us focus on the what appears to be a physical world, but
Mm-hmm.
that's always and only in our mind, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
the classroom of the Holy Spirit on the other side says, let's consistently forgive and include everyone, including ourselves, because there's just one of us. And
Right.
so if I
I
work
love your
from that
diagram.
premise, then we're all working together to do that. But the only person I really need to be responsible for is my own mind, and
Yes.
because that actually addresses everyone else's mind, not being responsible for someone else, but to each
Yeah.
each person I think of. So anyway, but
I
it's
love
all
it.
actually happening in this little blue
In this,
dot. And
yeah,
kudos
there's
to Ken Wapnick. This chart, of course, is obviously
a
a
recreation, a little
variation of
bit of
on
a
his
variation.
his
Yeah.
metaphysical charts. Yeah,
Oh, it's wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah, I love his
but there's
charts.
nothing that
Yeah.
really needs to be done in truth, which is this little strip that we're most for the most part just get little glimpses of reflections of when we're over in this frame of mind, right? Yeah.
Yes, reflections. That's a great thing. And while that chart is up, I've often used some of Ken's charts or a variation of them. I'll make a little one,
Uh-huh.
and we believe we are a split off part of up there, truth, non-duality in the yellow,
Yep. Yep.
above and we've projected ourselves into this world.
Yeah.
So no one's denying that we're having this, seemingly having this experience that we're here. It's just that the part of you, if you pull back the lens, what A Course in Miracles is helping us do is get back to that part of the mind behind time and space, represented by this blue dot, decision
Mm-hmm.
maker, dreamer, observer.
Mm-hmm.
And so your body's eyes are still seeing the wars and the form. But on the ego side, you believe that's real. Part of being in that thought system is that
Yep.
you are the body. On the Holy Spirit side, you're observing and you're going, oh, that's right. Outside the dream, I'm still appearing to be here. I'm going to be helpful in my families and my food and my this and my that. But instead of furthering illusion for everybody in the sonship, because you're one with it,
Mm-hmm.
you're waking up from this dream to the home we never really left,
Mm-hmm.
truth, pure non-duality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're slowly waking up. And A Course in Miracles is one great path for those that want to wake up and everything. So I love these. Thank you for putting that up.
Oh,
And
sure, sure. Yeah, I just thought so that really kind of seemed to fit the undo topic. Because
totally,
we
yeah.
we're constantly when we're right-minded, basically taking all the specifics, like you were just talking about, all the things that seem to be going on in our world, being normal, doing what's appropriate, being good stewards of our bodies, our homes, our families, our communities, doing whatever we can to make the world a better place, all the while realizing that the world is actually in our mind. And so
Right.
that's really the most important thing, is to watch what's going on in our mind and then do whatever we feel like we're inspired to do on the level of form. But the main thing is just
Absolutely.
keep moving it from the prison to the classroom, um,
Yes.
and and recognizing that it's never really happening on that level. It's always happening on the mental level. And
Mm-hmm.
that level is a split mind that the only way we can really heal that split is by listening to the Holy Spirit's interpretation of everything, really translation of ego's
Mm-hmm.
misinterpretation, and
Right.
learning to forgive ourselves for what hasn't changed our eternal being, right?
That's
That
right.
we all
That's
share,
right.
right? Yeah.
That we all share.
Yeah.
That's these diagrams also that you're using, that Ken has used and others I'm sure have used, are so helpful. At least, like, I'm also a visual person. I like to see it. When I had my in-person course group for 4 years, I had the white flip chart and I always had stuff up there to kind of, as
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
as we hear it, we can also kind of see it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that makes this so helpful, well, people don't have to believe it, that's a whole nother thing, but one of the things that makes this so helpful is that you can actually picture that you're projecting. There's two,
Mm-hmm.
and the Holy Spirit has to meet us where we believe we are. The
Right.
Course is meeting
Which,
us where we believe we are and just shifting
yeah.
our
Most of the time,
thoughts
it's
about it.
most of the time we're pretty much focused right here, right? As
That's
as
right.
as normal
And
humans, right? And
of
and
course, there's
and
no
of course
judgment of it.
the ego
Yeah.
doesn't want us to pay attention to the sin, guilt, fear, because that's the intolerable idea that we need to be doing something about this horrific, impossible crime that we pulled off. Well, we kind of have whited out the impossible, and we think it's not only possible, but we pulled it off,
Right.
right? So
Right. Right.
so Holy Spirit says it's actually is impossible that you could have damaged perfect oneness. So from that perspective, nobody needs fixing. There's nothing that has to be done in terms of doing. In fact, the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that really needs to be done is the undoing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't require anything, because if it never happened, there's nothing to undo, right?
Yep, that's the backdrop. Nothing's happened.
I don't, I need do nothing. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, people know this very famous analogy. We're always talking, everybody's always talking about it. You don't have to be studying A Course in Miracles to talk about it. The dreamer, the dream, you dream in bed at night. That seems real until you wake up. So the
Mm-hmm.
Course is saying all our time is spent in dreaming. That's a
Mm-hmm.
very good way of trying to articulate this and kind of clarify, because
Yeah.
you don't doubt you're dreaming when you're dreaming. You just, I mean, obviously people have lucid dreams, which is actually what this daytime dream becomes more and more like a lucid dream, where you're aware that you're dreaming,
Hmm.
but you know that you're dreaming, right? So you
Yeah.
can't go back into your bed last night and go into that dream. So that's what the course is saying. We're so focused on the effects changing everything, but
Hmm.
if we just change our mind first, it takes away even the pressure and the need to change anything, because the Holy Spirit isn't aware of that, doesn't live in that awareness.
Hmm.
Um, because things do change, you will witness things changing. But again, it's you're you're outside of the whole thing going on. You can be used as a source of awakening,
Hmm.
facilitating,
Hmm.
joining in peace, without feeling like you have to go in and do something. And it's often for naught. I mean, as long as I've been alive, I'll just use myself as an example. We've had war, we've had poverty, we can never get things right. It's the same cycle over and over again. So it's not negative, being negative to say that. It's just stating that you really need to go to the thoughts, change your mind about the world, and wake up to see the shared interests of love and forgiveness. We're all home in heaven. We're going home. So then you can relax here.
Yeah.
Do your best, but be used by the Holy Spirit just to extend love into the dream, right?
Yep.
And that's very fulfilling, because again, there's no complication in that.
Yeah.
Just
And the extension of love is automatic because that's what we are. It doesn't need any doing. There's no activity necessary on our parts.
right.
That's, probably obvious when we think about it, but we're so immersed in thinking that we need to compulsively be doing all these things in the world. It doesn't mean we should
Mm-hmm.
stop doing things. It's just noticing the state of mind that we're in as we do the things that we do, right?
That's what's key. That's
Yeah.
it. In
Yeah.
fact, that could be the one thing that someone knew or even experienced. Of course, it takes from this. Watch your thoughts.
Hmm. Hmm.
Watch your thoughts. Observe your life without judgment, conflict. The judgment's going to come, the conflicts, and then you go, oh, there it is again. I'm criticizing my. I still all the time. There's a script running from this lifetime, from a past lifetime, dream, whatever people want to say. It's going. There's this script still running where I'm criticizing myself that I could have done that better. Oh, I could have. It's very in the back. It's not in the forefront as much these
Hmm.
days, but boy, it's there. And I've said this before in podcasts, and I'll say it again. Mark will say, you seem really hard on yourself right now. I don't even realize it. I don't even realize that I'm saying,
Yeah.
oh God, I should have done that. Or, oh, I forgot to tell them that. I hope they know. Oh, I hope they know that they think, you know, so these are natural things that
Sure.
the
Sure.
body does, but I have to catch myself and say, oh my gosh, you've had 6 sessions today, you're helping me. You're going to review someone's book, someone just emailed you from Brazil and they want sessions. You're helping, you're contributing. I mean, I have to kind of go back to, why would you think that you're not doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, or not doing enough? But
Hmm.
this is just, everybody has their own thing. This just
Yeah.
happens to be this thing that just keeps coming in. My mother-in-law, I was talking to her and she sent me these because this is one of her favorite sayings. And she sent us our Christmas gifts and just put this in the card.
Be still, all as well. Yes. Very nice.
And it's so simple.
A
She
little
cut out,
airplane. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and yet
Yeah.
Mark, little airplane for
Uh-huh.
Mark, right?
Yeah. Very
And
cool.
I just have these little reminders. These are symbols of the
Yeah.
mind that make me happy. So here's my
Hmm.
little heart smiley face that I look down, and why? Well, it just is something I've conjured up that brings me joy. And so here it is, and my just little reminders, to
It's
myself.
it's all
Yeah,
it's all magic, but when magic helps, why not use it, right? So
100%. magic,
Yep. Breathing.
breathing, magic,
Yep. Yep.
wanting to manifest things, magic. Can we manifest some things? Absolutely. Is it fun? Yes. Is your salvation in it? If you can't manifest it, that's what you want to look at. It's just
Yeah.
another thing in the dream that we're doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah. Of course, it always reminds us that it's never about the form or behavior. It's always about the mind. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
I think that is it's so unique.
Hmm.
There's things about the course that are so unique. It really, I know we start out thinking sometimes, it's about the world and physical things in the world, physical miracles in the world. But as the mind starts to awaken, you recognize it's mind only. It's only addressing us at the mind level. That's it, So it's really unique. And of course,
That little blue
yes, the
dot.
little change. Yeah, just
And in fact,
your
it's
mind.
this
Yeah.
whole part of our mind, and including what seems to be physical, is still in our mind.
Yes.
That's really the crazy making stuff that leads to this compulsive idea that I have to do or fix or change stuff that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And Holy Spirit over here on this side is the answer, the antidote to this. I kind of like to think of this as sort of like one of those one-way mirrors like you have in department stores, or they're also in
Yeah.
police interrogation rooms where they can watch the people being interrogated. But,
Right.
so the Holy Spirit can look through into the ego thought system, sees that there's nothing going on. There's nobody home. Or like that song about Toledo, Ohio. It's like being nowhere at all, right?
Yes, I'm from Toledo.
For
I
you,
know
for
I
you and
always
Cindy, right?
That's
But
right.
there's nothing going on there,
Right,
and
right,
and
right, right.
but and it's completely neutral in truth. So
Yes,
so
in truth.
when the light looks at the darkness, it sees, well, there's nothing to get hung about, as the Beatles said, right? But
Yeah.
but
That's
and
right.
so the light can go through, but there's nothing to receive the light on that side. Now there's no light to go into the other direction, but because and even if there was, it's a mirror. So everything that could possibly come through from the ego's perspective is blocked because it's a one-way mirror, and it, whatever light there would have been would have bounced off. But there's nothing there to illuminate it. So it's just dark. It's just dark. So
Right. That's a great way to explain it.
yeah,
Our belief that we've actually separated
yeah,
is what gives rise to a world and everything.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're so right. It's not that anything is really, it's not, guys, we're not saying it's not that you're not experiencing. This is an experience that you're having. It's just not a true experience. It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
false experience, like a dream, one that we'll wake up from. We already have, but we're not out of that awareness. We're still believing in, the separation. And so, but as we were saying earlier, the personal self seems to get transformed first. You're just becoming softer, gentler. Things are easier, not because the world is easier, but your interpretation of it is changing. And
mhm,
instead of, when you're looking at war, sometimes, and this is just an example, and you're seeing the horrific things going on in the Holy Spirit mind, you're interpreting that as, oh gosh, that's right, the split off fragments of God calling for love, calling for help.
that's
Look
it.
at this conflict.
Yep.
It's the interpretation. It's not that the body's eyes are trying to ignore what you see and
Hmm.
everything, right?
Hmm.
It's just that you are perceiving it differently. So we're we're not responsible for what we see, meaning, oh, I see that, but we're shifting how we see it. What purpose does it serve? The Holy
Yep.
Spirit's going to
Yep.
remind you that what you're seeing isn't there. It's a dream. The ego's going to be like, no, this is real, this is it, and we have to address it. So this is a
Serious stuff.
serious stuff, which in the world, war and conflict, that's a serious thing. But the
Right.
world is in the mind of the dreamer. So we
That's
first
it.
want to change our mind
Yep.
first. And then, believe me, we're sitting here having this podcast where you're going to go on with your day. I'm going to go on with your day. It's not that people aren't doing things. I think that's like very confusing. It almost seems like, well, but I have to do this and this. Yep. And you will. Guess what? Just focus on changing your internal teacher. Just
Yeah.
focus on whenever you're not feeling peaceful. Why? Why is it just when I'm not feeling peaceful? Because that's when we're willing to make a change. That's when we don't like things the way they are. And so we want to use that opportunity to start to understand, well, why things are the way they are, and where is this coming from, and why don't things change, and why am I always, you start to get all those questions answered with an experience that can't always be put into words. You just start to get more of an awareness of what's going on here. And then that's fun, because it does get easier, in the sense, as what we were saying earlier. It's easier in the sense that, oh my gosh, I can relax because love extending through you is effortless. Love extending through you is effortless. Let it take the form that it takes. All expressions of love are maximal. It doesn't matter what form it takes. And that just makes it easy, because you know that you're listening to the right teacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very different experience. Yeah, inner experience. Yeah.
It is easier.
It is. You have to
Yeah.
get there. You have
I,
to get there, but it is easier.
yeah. Yeah. And it's allowing. It's not trying
Yes.
contrive, and it's back to the doing again. If I don't need to do anything, then the undoing is really automatic when I look without condemnation. And I think that's why
Yeah.
atonement in the course is sort of one of the many synonyms for forgiveness. I just glanced at one of the 105 instances of the word undo in
Yeah.
the course. One of them is chapter 2, section 4. It says a major step in the atonement plan, or the forgiveness plan, if you will, is to undo error at all levels. Well, here's all the levels. That
Yeah.
there's,
See.
I mean, there's so many different things in the world that we think are the problem, but if I'm never upset for the reason I think, then I can jump, back into the mind and look with the Holy Spirit's help at this thought system, and see that if nothing has truly happened in eternity, then the whole misinterpretation realm of sin, guilt, and fear that the ego says, those happened, you should be afraid, be very afraid, kind of thing, because you pulled off this impossible crime.
Yeah.
And Holy Spirit just says, I can undo that by seeing that the cause was unfounded.
That's
It
right.
didn't actually happen in eternity. So
Yeah.
anything that changes can't be real in an eternal sense. And our reality is only spirit, is only eternal. And therefore we have
Beautiful.
complete true reason, true justification for peace.
Yes, well said. And again, how do we get there? Just one forgiveness lesson at a time.
Yep.
Looking at
Yep.
your life as a classroom.
Just
It can become fun. Yeah, just over here on
yep.
that side of your screen. Yeah,
Yep.
um and it can just, guys, you'll feel better. You'll feel so much better. Anyone watching, it doesn't mean, and again, this, all these conversations could go off on many tributaries and answer many questions. So it doesn't mean that sometimes the ego doesn't get ratcheted up when you're trying to undo it, because it's going to fight for its existence.
Yeah.
Because when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
in that thought system, it feels like you're giving up a part of yourself. It can feel that way. It can feel like, oh, I'm practicing spirituality in the course and things are getting worse and everything. It's just more unconscious guilt coming up. And it's almost like we identify so much for the body with the body. Don't feel guilty about that. Just, and even if you wake up and go, I love my body and my life right now. Oh, I lost weight. I do that. Great. Don't go into, oh no, you're making it too real. Just watch your thoughts that tell you, oh, you're making it too real. But be normal here. It's normal to like things. It's normal. Again, is your salvation in it? Is it right? Are you making it so that it's above all else? No, you would just be normally commenting that you like this cookie, you like this smoothie, you like this. Oh, I lost this weight. Oh, my neighbor gave me this present. Oh my, just normal things, right? You're only making things real in your resistance to what is, to just being normal, trying to have it be another way, or trying to spiritually bypass, or trying to just live and observe.
Mhm.
And when you're feeling anything less than peaceful, you can say, oh my gosh, class is in session. I'm going to get a little bit closer to feeling good. And then you're someone that wants to help others. You'll help others tremendously when you're in your right mind and you're leading from that, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
these conversations can always, they bring up so many questions. So sometimes I feel inspired just to throw a little something in there about what someone might be thinking. But what about this? But what about right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if we can look at our egos without condemnation, including the ones that we've projected onto just about everyone and everything in the world, that is when we're truly helpful. That's, I mean, if our goal is to be altruistic and help the world, well, if the world's in our mind, that's
Change your
where
mind
we can
about
actually do
it.
something about it 24/7. At least the potential's there, and we're all
Right.
working toward that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The world's in your mind. So people that want to save the world, it's saved by forgiving it and recognizing that it was just a dream. That releases all minds. They have the ability to make that choice too, which is really, there's just
Mhm.
one of us. So you're just forgiving the split off parts of yourself. But that was so well said, Bruce. So we, save the world by undoing the thought that gave rise to it.
Mhm. We're
Right?
uncondemning what ego believed it
That's it.
condemned.
Yes, right. Which that was a great point you made about going back to the mind and going, but wait a minute, I didn't even attack God. I didn't even choose to be separate. And that's when you can remember that and
Yeah.
be at that level, then that's a blessing as well. So we go in steps, don't we?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
But it
Second
is
step
moment
in
to moment,
forgiveness.
like you were
Yeah,
saying, just
yeah,
moment to
for
moment,
sure.
noticing when we're not at peace, and that then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I must be over here on this side because that's the only place where peace is absent. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it. Absolutely. Oh gosh, yeah, the charts, it's so helpful. I love them.
Well, we've got 104 quotes left to do. Should we just make it a marathon? And
Yes, read a couple of them. Yes.
I'm being facetious, but
I know.
I mean anyway. I'll when
It's
I make
endless.
a post
Yeah.
about this, I'll put the link here so if people want to explore all the undos. There's so many good ones in here.
There's
Uh,
so many
Let,
good
let me
ones.
just let me just pick. Here we go. Here's a good one. Just scrolling through. This is from the last paragraph in the decision for God section, which is
Mm,
chapter 5, section 7.
nice.
Um, it says, I'll read the start from paragraph sentence 5. Your part is merely to return your thinking to the point at which the error was made, and it's not a sin; it's an error. It's an undoable mistake. So there's that undoable uh, potential that's
Theme.
in
Mhm.
every situation, every moment is we can undo the belief in separation. So return my thinking to the point at which the error, the undoable error was made, and give it over to the atonement, to Holy Spirit, to forgiveness and peace. Say this to yourself as sincerely as you can, remembering that the Holy Spirit will respond fully to your slightest invitation. I must have
Yes.
just decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. I made the decision myself, but I can also decide otherwise. I want to decide otherwise because I want to be at peace. I do not feel guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of my wrong decision if I will let Him. I choose to let Him by allowing Him to decide for God for me.
I love that. And there's steps of forgiveness in there again. We're
Yeah.
taking
Yep.
what we need to forgive, right? The external,
Mm-hmm.
seemingly, and
Bringing
we're
it
saying,
back
wait, but
inside.
that's not really the, I'm bringing it back in. The second step is I'm forgiving myself for dreaming this in the first place, for feeling like I was guilty and
Mm-hmm.
felt the need to project a world to,
That's
to
it. That's
hide
it.
my sin. And then I give it over to the Holy Spirit and I can have peace. So that is another beautiful example of these forgiveness steps slipping
Yeah.
in there without being called forgiveness steps.
Yeah. And sometimes it's sort of automatic, you just realize, oh,
Yes,
the whole thing is just how silly that I was doing that. It's like, and I can forgive myself, and everybody else is off the hook in the same moment.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Can I read something real
Oh,
quick
please do.
too?
Yes, yes.
I love this from chapter 28, The
Okay.
Undoing of Fear. You sent this to me as a possible thing,
Hmm.
and I revisited it again. It's chapter 28, The Undoing of Fear, section 1, paragraph 1. The miracle does nothing. All it does is undo,
Hmm.
and thus it cancels out the interference to what has been done. It does not add, but merely takes away. And what it takes away is long since gone, but being kept in memory appears to have immediate effects. So I just love that.
Hmm.
Again, like you
Hmm.
said, it's the kind of the same thing said in a different way. But the miracle is recognizing that we are the dreamer of this dream, not the figure in the dream. The miracle is saying, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of my salvation. I can recall this projection, one irritation at a time, one conflict, one upset, and the world was long since away, but we can keep this alive in our mind as long as we want.
Hmm.
And the miracle just undoes what you were saying, what we were saying earlier. It's just taking away the interference between what we really are and what we've made. What we've made out there. So I always think to myself, yeah, what a miracle. Oh, what a miracle. We have not sinned. We're not guilty and we're not going to be punished. Right?
Yep. We just have to keep questioning over
Yeah.
and over and over in all the countless forms that it seems to appear, the belief in
Yeah.
separation, the belief that we pulled off a dualistic dream and that it
Yeah.
seems to have real effects, but what if that's not
Right.
true? What if that's not
What
true?
what if it's not true? What if it's something that we're watching? I can't go in and watch an episode of Blue Bloods that I watched last Friday with Tom Selleck. It's gone. It's the, you know what I mean? I can watch a recording though, can't I? In the mind, a recording of things long ago that have long since finished, and I can replay that as much as I want. If I just want to replay it over and over again, right? And that's
Hmm.
kind of what we do here. We just replay things. I think that speaking of miracles, it's again, this is a whole another podcast. But there's such a love for physical miracles and things like that. And one way to look at that is the miracle we know occurs in the mind, right?
Hmm.
A reflection of choosing your right-minded teacher, remembering that you're the dreamer. And when you're joining with a brother in that way, a reflection of that could be what we see as what would be a physical miracle, but it's just a fact, and it won't
Hmm.
always happen that way.
Hmm.
And we can love miracles, and that's why the course is so unique, is because it's really in your mind. That doesn't mean a reflection of that would not happen, as far as like somebody feels well right away, like when Jesus was able to do that. The miracle was really in the mind. He knew he was mind, and Lazarus and people can reanimate the body or whatever. The body's in his dreaming mind, and it's reminding you that there's no death, no. So everything in the world is symbolic. It's symbolic. So you can have it, the world's not really there. So you can have a representation of that, right? But I think the course is so unique because the miracle is your change, rearranging perception. The miracle is a correction, like you say, a correction in your thinking,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so enjoy like miracles and things. We need to talk normally with people, but at the end of the day,
I'm
we know
working
the
on that.
real change is in the mind. I'm working on it. We're all working on it. We're all working on it. I just thought that's just a kind of what's also just so unique about
Yeah.
A Course in Miracles is what that is. But yes, it can be reflected because
Hmm.
everything here is symbolic. So you could look
Yeah.
at a
Yep.
symbol of what we would say, oh, that's a physical miracle, you know? So fine, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
this
The course really does stick pretty completely, absolutely, to the idea that miracles are always of the mind. But like
it's
you say,
always of the mind,
they can be
always.
reflected, in apparent form. And
Yeah.
yet some person, person A might say, "Oh, wow, that's really wonderful," and someone else might say, if it's not to their ego's liking, might say, what miracle kind of thing. So
Yes.
the level of form was meant to keep duality going. So
Yes.
rather than get hung up about what happens or doesn't happen in the world, and like you say, if everything's a symbol, including our bodies, including the
Hmm.
planet Earth, including the Milky Way galaxy, everything that we can, atoms, they're all symbols of ideas. And
Right.
so it's a
Of
very
separation.
Platonic
Mhm.
philosophy that the Course really is furthering.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's not the thing, it's the idea behind the thing that's important.
Yes. And you know what? That always feels so good.
Hmm.
I feel good choosing the miracle in your mind over a grievance. Over doesn't mean we don't have grievances, doesn't mean I don't have my forgiveness work to do, doesn't mean, but I choose that, oh gosh, it's just another opportunity to bring me more of the feeling of being connected. That's forgiveness is heaven's reflection
Hmm.
of love here. It's the closest is forgiving others, being all inclusive, recognizing this is your dream. Oh my God, nobody's coming to get me. There's no comparisons. Nobody's better. Nobody's worse. No one's this. No one's that. No one's, yes, in the dream, you have all these differences. The ego is just so, has to be separate, fragments, you know? But when you really integrate that, oh my gosh, I'm just here to be truly helpful, I'll just let that thought system reflect in. It's a miracle. It's a miracle to know you're
Hmm.
home in God. It's okay to know that. And you can live normally here. You're just living under a different set of principles. And you're just waking up from illusion instead of furthering it. That's it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. What you just said reminded me of a school era joke, and that is the kid was misbehaving and badly, and so the teacher, you know, ushers him to the head office, and so the head of the school is standing there and asking him, what's going on here? And the kid says, "Well, it's not the school I don't like. It's just the principle of the thing." So I don't know.
I
It's one of those silly little things that
oh,
stuck in your head.
oh, I love it. I love it. I'll share one thing about school because I loved that joke so much. I'm going to remember that. Yeah, it's the principle of the thing. It's funny. It's good. I had a client, I'm going to share this now. It's going to be in my forthcoming book, but I'll share it because it was such a great example. And I'm very, very much just paraphrasing this down into a little thing for the purposes of time. But I was talking to one of my longtime clients a while back, and one of her sons didn't like school and was just having issues with it. And so she talks to her kids about maybe seeing it in a different way, maybe from a different perspective, or what would be some of the things that you enjoy or whatever.
Hmm.
Well, one day she went to pick him up, and he's young. I think he was probably like 9. I'll have to look at my notes or something like that. He was so happy. He came running out to the car, and she's like, "Well, what happened today?" And he said, "I made a decision that today I'm not going to attack school."
There you go.
Isn't
There you
and it
go.
was like
I think that could be generalized. In fact, it
beautiful.
might even
Of
be just sort of represented like, oh yeah, this could be a way out of here. Yeah.
he's not going to attack. So profound. I
Yeah.
thought, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, he's just, that is so great, even at that age in his own
Yeah,
way.
that's
And
cool.
he
That's
just
cool.
made a decision that well, I'm not going to attack school today. What could possibly happen if I get a different view of it?
Mhm.
Anyway, you reminded me when you're talking about
That's
school
great.
and the
That's great.
principal. So
Very
share that.
cool.
Yeah, so fun. She gave me permission to share it in the book, so it's a little, oh, I just love it. Learning from
Not going to
the young ones. I know.
attack the classroom. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
So,
Did you have some things you want to announce to people? I think you mentioned that
oh,
there's some up events and that sort of thing.
yeah, well, thank you for asking that because it's the end of the year. I don't have like a lot right in December, but what I did want to mention is I've been doing therapy sessions for 16 years, and I've changed it on my website where people can pick the times that work for them, but I'm booked. So for people that are so used to just, I had it done the other way when you could just email about a specific time. What I did is made the times that are available, but when it's closed, I have a note there that says just email me. So I wanted to have a lot of people, longtime people, just email me if you want to be on the wait list or want to have a session. It just looks a little bit different. So that's it. And the new thing, I guess, for me is I'm in the slow class, but I jumped on Facebook and Instagram because I thought I'm going to join the symphony of voices to kind of just put out my messages that people might like to enjoy. And if so, I have a business Facebook page, which is all my teachings and the core stuff, spiritual stuff. And then I have the personal Facebook page, and then I have the business Instagram. So at Jackie Laura Jones. And so you guys can find me if you're interested. And again, it's been a few weeks, so I'm just navigating what people have been doing for like a long time, but it's been fun to connect with people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Neat. Very neat.
yay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you as always, Jackie. I always enjoy our conversations, and I always find them helpful to remind me of, what we're all working on, really. So
We're
yeah,
teaching ourselves, aren't we?
we're all in together here, right? Yep.
We're all in it together. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We're all work in progress, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, great to see you always, Bruce.
Likewise.
Have a
Likewise.
great holiday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep the holy in the holiday. Keep the holy in the
All that
holly.
good stuff.
All
Yes.
that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll see you in the new year at some
Yeah.
point. So,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
Thanks again.
Blessings to everyone.